Welcome to tutorial 2.2.3, which is about the automated regression testing with generative AI. In this tutorial, we are going to understand about the generative AI capabilities or how generative AI is helping us in the automated regression testing. There will be a couple of hands-on exercises that will be covered as part of this tutorial as well. So when we talk about the automated regression testing with generative AI, with each new iteration, if we talk about the agile software development, we have the iterations and then you have releases maybe at 3 months or 2 months. There will be different releases. With each iteration in agile software development, you have the new user stories. Basically, you pick whatever needs to be built in that iteration. Then the developers develop it, testers write the test cases, execute, test it, and then deliver that piece of work in that iteration, which is 2 to 4 weeks cycle. Next iteration, you have the new piece of work. So with this iterative software development, with each iteration, there will be a new piece of code that will be added and new set of test cases that will be added for the new user stories that are picked in that iteration. So with new iteration, new release, regression test cases increase in number, and that's where automated tools need to be there. And with generative AI, it is becoming even more easier to manage this increasing regression testing with each iteration. These regression test cases are ideal candidates for automation in CI/CD pipelines due to high frequency of execution, because you do not go back to re-execute the test cases that were in the past sprints again and again in the new iteration, because the team is fixed. You can't have more people in, say for example, in the 10th iteration or 10th sprint. You will have the regression test cases that have been added in the past 9 sprints. So you need automated tools, you need generative AI capabilities and the CI/CD capabilities to execute these test cases. Now with the generative AI in automated regression testing, Gen AI assists in creation, maintenance and optimizing the regression suite. That's the first thing. Then it can also perform the impact analysis to focus testing where most is needed. Wherever most testing is needed, it can do that impact analysis based on any changes that are happening in the requirement or in the release cycle or in the requirements. Then it can dynamically adapt to code-based changes as well. So if you have generative AI integrated into your requirements tool, into your automation tool, it can automatically analyze the code base, and if there are changes, then based on those changes, it can help you to get the updated list of test cases or what should be the priority of the regression testing with those changes, and can update the regression suite accordingly as well. And that's all automated. You only need to go ahead and see whether those changes are relevant, are proper, and then accept those changes, or do some updates and then accept those changes. Now automated test script implementation. Gen AI can help you in the implementation of the test scripts based on the keyword driven test automation framework. Not only keyword driven test automation framework, in hybrid frameworks or any other automation frameworks, you can use generative AI capabilities for test script implementation, test script creation. With the keyword driven automation framework, it can help to map the predefined keyword. As we know that in the keyword driven framework, you have the keyword and that keyword is being mapped to the step or the number of steps that are automated. Say for example, login, okay, or login to application. This keyword can be mapped to the number of steps. For example, open login page, enter credentials and verify dashboard loads. So in this case, if say for example, we use generative AI to suggest, we say login to the application, then Gen AI can generate the script automatically for us based on the existing scripts that we have. Open the login page, enter credential, verify dashboard loads, right? And can also generate automation code in that scenario. So automated test script implementation, whether it's the keyword driven framework, whether it's the hybrid framework, whether it's the API testing that you are doing, you can utilize a generative AI to get suggestions for the code snippets, for the framework structure as well, and then use it in your automation. Then you can use generative AI for the impact analysis and the test optimization as well. Gen AI can analyze the code changes. It can identify high risk areas and enable targeted regression testing, as I briefly covered in previous slide. For example, if there are code changes in payment module, then generative AI prioritizes regression test cases for the checkout, billing and refund. So if you have the generative AI capability that scans your code, you have it in-house, for example, or you have the paid plan in the organization that can scan your code repository and see the changes that are happening or see the complexity into the code, then it can automatically guide you or suggest that this area might be more error prone or there were more error or defects in this module, so add more test cases around these were the defects that were raised and maximum defects were raised in this module or payments module. Then the generative AI will be able to suggest that this should be the higher focus area for your testing, and if there are more test cases required in that area, that can also be suggested by generative AI, or you can ask generative AI in the prompts to suggest more test cases based on those failures or based on the code changes. So that's where in the impact analysis and test optimization, generative AI is becoming really helpful, and you should be using this in your projects. Self-healing and adaptive test cases. So generative AI adjusts scripts for minor UI or API changes. If there are changes, for example, in the UI, the locator changes. Okay, so generative AI, instead of failing the script, it can automatically see the changes and modify your steps or test cases or test scripts automatically. So with that, it keeps the test suite stable over time. Even in Selenium, now we have the self-healing capability. There is a Selenium library that is available, so you can use that library to actually write the self-healing test cases. When we say self-healing, if there are any locator changes, the library will be able to scan and see the changes and map the most recent or most close locator and make sure that your script doesn't fail with any of those UI locator changes. Same thing applicable with the API test cases as well. So Gen AI auto updates scripts to avoid any of the UI or API failures. Then we have the automated test reporting and insights. So Gen AI generates detailed and timely reports. It can include the success metrics, failure insights. It provides the dashboards with trends and predictive analysis, and the report shows the login test failing frequently. Say for example, you have the login tests which are failing very frequently. Gen AI will provide the predictive insight for the failure and any possible failures. For example, the failures were because of the authentication issue. Gen AI will be able to help you with that or provide you the test reporting and insight for that. Then enhanced defect reporting and root cause analysis. So generative AI can compile comprehensive defect reports with the test log, screenshot, environment data. When you have a lot of information in the defect report, so generative AI can easily analyze the test log, the screenshot, the environment data, and provide you enhanced defect report and also do root cause analysis. Now with the test log, if you are doing or generating the report manually, it might take a lot of time to analyze and provide the root cause analysis in your report. But if you feed in all of the test log, screenshot, environment data, failure data to generative AI, it can generate the dashboard with enhanced defect reporting, also mentioning the root cause analysis of the failure. So it can compile comprehensive defect report with all of that data. It also supports root cause analysis. For example, if you have failed checkout test, Gen AI reports include API logs and screenshot for the error page. Gen AI provides comprehensive defect evidence for faster resolution. So in this case, in the defect reporting as well, if you have Gen AI capability, you can feed in the data and then get the best or enhanced defect reporting for the developers, which will include the probable root cause of the failure based on the failure logs or the test logs, based on the screenshots that you have taken for the application and the environment as well, and provide all those details automatically that you can review and then submit the defect report. So that's where Gen AI is also very helpful. Now if we talk about the GUI and API regression testing, Gen AI assists in end-to-end GUI and API based automated regression testing. Any automation testing, any script, any framework development, Gen AI will be very helpful. It will help you in fixing or tackling any of the frequent UI changes. For example, if the UI locator changed, GenAI will be able to automatically suggest you the new locator and can update the scripts. API challenges in API testing, changing request response format, endpoint authentication. Generative AI can adapt the script based on different test data, based on your Swagger documentation, for example, for the API documentation. You can feed in the new documentation and the scripts can be updated based on the new documentation automatically. You can review and then update those changes in your script. So manually, if say for example you have 1,000 API test cases, you can do it really quickly or update those very quickly or scan for any changes in the Swagger documentation. So for example, if we talk about the GUI and API example, GUI, GenAI updates locator if button is renamed, or for the API if new endpoint has been added or the documentation or the Swagger documentation has been updated, GenAI will be able to update the test cases as per the new API documentation. So that's about the automated regression testing with generative AI, or how generative AI is helping us in the automated regression testing. In the next video, we'll cover another important topic of the ISTQB generative AI certification. Thank you. See you in the next one.